Yes, thanks for joining us. Game preview time. John Lund with you. Rams and Niners, as you just saw in that graphic. Thursday night football down at Levi Stadium. The traffic is divine on Thursday night football. I would get there early. I'm looking at it right now. Lots open at 1:45. Premium gates 2:15. All gates 3:15. Get there early. It is not fun on a Thursday night down at Levi Stadium. The game shall be 7-6 Rams, 6-7 49ers. Game preview time. Lots of videos, fun graphics, all those kind of things, and 5 things you need to know about the game. John Lund Unleashed. Please make sure that you are subscribing to both the podcast and to the YouTube channel at John Lund Unleashed Pod. At John Lund Unleashed Pod. All social media I am on. You can see right there I'm on just about all social media. So anywhere you can find me. I am mostly, if you have questions, comments, thoughts. What a jackass for saying that in the pregame chat. Make sure that you hit me up at John Lund Radio on Twitter. That's where I am mostly. But again, on all forums, platforms, etc. So you can follow me anywhere you like. Mostly on Twitter is where I hang, at John Lund Radio. And the John Lund YouTube channel, at John Lund Unleashed. All right, with that out of the way, a ton of stuff going on with the 49ers. If they do have any chance, which I've said time and time again, with the injuries, the craziness of the season, the weirdness of everything, I don't think the 49ers are going to go to the playoffs. Yes, they have the Rams, and I'll tell you later if I think they're going to win, but then you got to go to Miami. That's a long trip. Detroit's going to be licking their chops on this whole thing, so I think it's going to be difficult. But let's preview the game and see what's going on. Now, as far as the first and foremost, we've got to start every 49ers conversation here in the game preview against the Rams on Thursday night. With injuries, there is a rap sheet, so no Trent Williams with the ankle, no Malik Mustafa chest. Isaac Guerendo is the key to the game, and I will talk about that a little bit later. The Rams have been horrendous in the last few games against the run, so I don't know if Patrick Taylor can do it, but Isaac Guerendo, we are all very high on, and I've talked about it a ton in my show every day, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. on the YouTube channel and on the podcast at John Lund Unleashed, so make sure you join us 8 a.m. Pacific. But Guerendo is a key to the game. Greenlaw we'll get to as well, maybe for the first time since the Super Bowl. Dre Greenlaw is going to be ready. A couple of Rams out, Tyler Higbee, Kobe Durant. But mainly, all the injuries. And, of course, Nick Bosa on that list, questionable. And maybe by the time that you watch or listen to this, we will know a little bit more about who's playing and who's not. If you are new to the show and you're watching on the YouTube channel, you look right there and you see that chalkboard. The chalkboard to the right of me, very simple, Lambs at 49ers. Who's playing? Just did that. Kyle now and then. I'll give you something funny I did on my show today that people responded to quite well. Tail of the tape between the two teams, Matthew Stafford, and then the 5 things. The Rams run D, number 9 versus the 49ers. Jauan and Deebo, Thursday night football, the quick turnaround. You heard from both Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay on that topic. And then big play Dre. I got a little bit of a story, but we'll talk Dre Greenlaw. Hopefully this is the day that, or the night that Dre Greenlaw returns. So first and foremost, the injuries, we talked about that. Who plays, who's not. Key, obviously, Nick Bosa. Nick Sorensen hasn't shown that he wants to rush more than 4, even if Nick is not out there. So then what does that do? Gives Matthew Stafford a ton of time to sit back. And last time between these two teams, when the 49ers blew a 10-point lead early in the season, there was no Puka Nacua. And there was no Cooper Kupp, and this time there are. So that's going to be a major problem. Offensive line was kind of in shambles for the Rams as well. They've gotten much healthier, and so that could be a problem, but we'll get into why or how the 49ers have dominated the Rams. So that's what's going on. But we were doing something, before I get to the preview, we were doing something this morning on the show, and we got into this because I played a cut of Kyle, and I thought, man, Kyle is aged, and I'm not one to speak, but Kyle is aged, and so it was like I wanted to show you. So this is Tommy and I, Tom Tolbert and I, Kyle's first day on the job. So this is he gets introduced in 2017 in the press conference, and then he comes over. We're the flagship station of the 49ers. He comes over with Tom and I, and this is Kyle's first interview and first day on the job. Look at how young he looks. Are you kidding me? There's Tom in his normal attire. There's me. I don't really know what I'm doing with anything there. It's not a good look. But then there's Kyle Shanahan. Look at him. It's my first day. I'm clean shaven. Look at my suit. I mean, it's like a new press suit. Very nice. Hair's dark. No grays whatsoever. Remember, that's Kyle Shanahan coming off the Super Bowl loss with the Falcons to the Patriots, where they had the big 28-6 lead. We did, by the way, talk to him about a few things off the air about that Super Bowl, certain guys missing blocks and the such, but I don't think I'm at liberty to say that even now, 7 years later. But anyway, there's Kyle, first day on the job, press suit, nice guy, pin, tie, nice, black hair, jet black hair, very young looking. There's Kyle now. 7 years coach of the 49ers. Ugh, he's all gruff, gray, skin's all, man. Bad news. It ages you more than the president. Anyway, just wanted to give that to you before we got going. And believe me, he looks a lot better than I do. Kyle's a good-looking man. I'm just saying that it does age you, this profession that he has chosen, sleeping on cots, staying all night. And that's Thursday Night Football. He didn't go home this week. Thursday Night Football, he didn't go home at all this week. All right, let's get to it. Tail of the tape as we preview 49ers and Rams on Thursday Night Football. As you can see, kind of close comparison. 6-7 Niners, 7-6 Rams. Points per game, fairly close. Total offense a little bit more for the 49ers. And but remember, early in the season, lots of guys missing on the offensive line for the Rams, so they're better. Big right there, rushing offense we'll get into in a minute. 138.97th in the league for the 49ers, despite all the issues. 103 for the Rams. They have Kyron Williams, but their offense, especially early in the year, didn't run the ball well. Passing offense a little bit better for the 49ers, but pretty darn close. Points allowed per game, close. 23-7 for the Niners, 25-5 for the Rams. Total defense is a pretty big number. Third in yards of the 49ers. That doesn't tell the story. That's why yards are a complete lie, because you'd think the 49ers were one of the best defenses in the league, and they're not. About 300 yards a game, third in the league. 26th for the Rams, 366.1. Especially the rushing defense, if you get down there on tail of the tape, 141 yards per game for the Rams, 28th in the league. We're going to explore that quite a bit. Sacks, the Niners have quite a bit more in that one. Interceptions, pretty close. Punts, who cares? Turnover differential, that's a big one. -3 49ers, +3 for the Rams. Could that rear its ugly head? Last week I did tell you in the game preview the 49ers had 19 turnovers and the Bears only 9, so watch that. That did not matter last week as the 49ers handled the Bears quite easily. All right, that is tail of the tape if you're watching on the YouTube channel. I told you about the run defense, and this is number 5 on the list. So let's go down. These are the 5 things to watch for in the game. 5 things to watch for in the game, and then we'll talk about it next week, and you're going to go, well, you're 100% wrong on all these things, you jackass. But this is number 1 on the list, the Rams' run defense. And if you look at that nice little graphic that I've put together, complete with the John Lund Unleashed logo, the last 3 games against the run defense of these LA Rams, Eagles, 45 carries, 314 yards, and 3 touchdowns. That is not a misprint, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. 45 for 314 and 3 touchdowns for the Eagles. Saints go 31 for 143. The Bills, if you watch that game, the Bills were down the entire game, so they could have run the ball and crushed the Rams' run defense, but they got a break because the Bills fell behind like 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter and had to throw the ball, although Josh Allen was the one who got a lot of those rushing yards, but still 17 for 103 and 3 touchdowns in limited chances because they fell behind against the Bills in that, 45-42 Rams win. So over the last 3 games, you go down to total there, 93 carries, 560 yards, and 6 touchdowns. That's 6 yards a pop. 6 yards a pop. So obviously Kyle Shanahan knows that. He likes that magic number because that's about 31 totes per game. And if you go over 30 for Kyle Shanahan, his record is remarkable. It's over 80% win percentage. So that's the key number for Kyle. Not only the amount of yards you get and yards per carry and all those kind of things, but if you go over 30 for Kyle Shanahan team, that is one of the magic elixirs to winning. On the season for the Rams rush defense, just to finish this conversation up, 141 yards per game, 28th in the league, as you see right there. At 4.7 yards per pop, 24th in the league. But I'm going to emphasize, a lot of times with these things, early in the season with the Rams, they were different, all these kind of things. This is the last 3 games, 93 for 560, 6 yards a pop and 6 touchdowns. So the rush defense of the Rams has been absolutely, positively horrendous over the last 3 games, and that's something to watch for, and that is key number 5. And I put these in no particular order, but the Rams rush defense in the last 5 has been horrendous. Obviously, that Eagles game is huge in that when they rushed for 314 yards, but they have not been stopping the run. So that's number 5 on the list. Clearly, the 49ers, as I told you in tail of the tape, one of the best teams rushing the football. As we go back to tail of the tape for just a second to just kind of reemphasize that. The rush defense at 141, 28th for the Rams, and the rush offense for the 49ers, 138.9, which is 7th. So they're going to run the ball a ton. Now the question becomes, is that going to be Isaac Guerendo? Because Guerendo last week, in his first start of the season, 75 yards rushing on 15 totes, a couple of really nice catches out of the backfield, sprained his foot because it's the crazy season for the 49ers, and if anything good happens to them, then somebody's got to sprain a foot or get hurt or be questionable. Just to kind of give you the injury designations, they have upgraded Guerendo, who hasn't practiced much this week, to questionable. They upgraded Bosa also to questionable, and questionable plays, as far as the 49ers are concerned, questionable plays about 80% of the time when you have that designation going into a game for the 49ers, so that is good news. So I expect Guerendo to play, and if he does play, he's going to be really good against that terrible run defense for the Rams. So in the 5 things, the Rams' rush defense is number 5. Let's move on to number 4. That is number 9 versus the 49ers. On the chalkboard, number 9, of course, is Matthew Stafford. 2-8 versus the 49ers in his career. But remember, a lot of those were the Lions, and they were absolutely horrendous teams. But if you go down to the Rams, you just go right there. What is that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games. Now, I know he won an NFC championship against the 49ers. I am conveniently forgetting that part and just saying in the regular season, so it will fit my narrative. 1 in 5 is Matthew Stafford as a Ram against the 49ers. That's 7-7 that I've so neatly drawn down there in blue ink. 7 touchdowns, 7 interceptions on that. And the only game that Matthew Stafford has beaten the 49ers, you guessed it, earlier this year when the 49ers blew that 10-point lead. They should have won that game. He should be 0-6 against the 49ers lifetime. In that game earlier this year, 16 of 25, 221 yards and a touchdown, a sparkling QB rating. But he hasn't played great football against the 49ers, as you can tell. And even though if a quarterback should not be judged by his record against the team, that's what we do with quarterbacks. We judge them by their record against teams. There's a lot of other guys out there, but 1 in 5 really should be 0-6 and had lost 5 consecutive games as a Ram in the regular season until the unlikely win earlier this year. So Matthew Stafford has not been great. 2-8 in his career against the Niners, 1 in 5 as the lead man for the Rams at quarterback. But look, Stafford scares the hell out of me. You know the story. The 49ers were trying to get him, but Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford were down in Cabo together. They got it done. He wanted to go to L.A., gets traded to the Rams. Could you imagine if the 49ers got him because they came in second place in that whole thing? Stafford's even said it. And Kyle goes down to Cabo all the time, so he could have run into him. I don't know the exact details on everything and why Stafford wanted to go to the Rams instead of the Niners. It's worked out well for him, clearly, because he won a Super Bowl. But let's just play Fantasyland for a second. If Stafford ends up with the 49ers, there's no Trey Lance trade. You keep all those picks. Maybe you're the team to win the Super Bowl, because we can talk about elite quarterbacks in the league, and I think there's only 2. Mahomes, I know he's not having a great year, but he wins those close games, which is what Kansas City's done all year. And then Josh Allen, who last time against the Rams almost single-handedly won that football game. There's only 2 elite quarterbacks, at least in my mind, in the league. Stafford can run hot and cold because he's 36, 37 years old. He's not the athlete he used to be, but he has the quick release. He has the arm. He has the smarts. If you try to bring exotic blitzes or crazy things, he just reads it so fast, so well. And remember, earlier this year, and we'll get into this in a second, they didn't have Puka Nacua. They didn't have Cooper Kupp. And so it scares me a little bit that with the Niners being as banged up as they are and maybe missing Nick Bosa, although, again, he got upgraded to questionable, so I think he's going to play in this game. Matthew Stafford can tear you apart even if he hasn't had great numbers in his career against the 49ers. So number 4 on the list, number 9 versus 49ers, that is Matthew Stafford. All right, let's get to the receivers. And I know that Deebo Samuel, there's a lot of talk of Deebo Samuel this week and, being upset and all those kind of things. Let me run this back for you. This is earlier this week. And then we'll get into a Deebo and a Jauan Jennings and the receivers for the Rams, because I'm doing these in no particular order as we preview the game, but this might be the most important element, the receivers. And I was going to say versus each other. They're not on the field at the same time, but certainly the receivers for the 49ers versus the receivers for the Rams, it's going to be absolutely huge. But before we get to that, here is Kyle earlier this week. Deebo Samuel complained publicly on social media that he wasn't getting the football. I will decipher that in a second, but here's Kyle Shanahan wishing that those kind of things would stay in-house.
I hate it.
Well, it's not your favorite thing in the world. You don't use it.
I don't know how to do it.
You
Yeah. Deebo knows how to do social media, though. And so yesterday he said that he's not struggling, he's just not getting the ball. Has he expressed any frustration with you in terms of targets and production?
Deebo and I talk every day, so I understand Deebo saying that. Deebo wants to help us out, and the only way he helps us out is getting the ball more, and we'd like to get it to him more, and we'll continue to work at that.
When he does that, obviously it's more than just saying that. It can create a distraction, or people can perceive that in different ways. And maybe it can't be good for the team. Do you have any problems with that, or do you talk to him about, hey, maybe just keep that in-house?
Yeah, we'd always love things to stay in-house. That's probably why I don't mess with social media. I'm sure I'd get worked up and stuff too if I was reading stuff about myself all the time, and then I'd maybe make a tweet or something. But that's, is it a distraction in our building? No. We've got to answer questions about it. It's the first time I've talked about it is right here, but Deebo and I see each other every day and talk about stuff every day, so my advice is to not let outside frustrate you, because just answering those things isn't going to help you in any way. Usually only hurt you. But as far as like what we deal with in our relationships and our team, it's water under the bridge.
All right, so I'm going to make a case for Deebo Samuel having a breakout game against the Rams because he's often done that in his career. So give me a second, and I'll show you a bunch of numbers with Deebo that may indicate that he could break out against the Rams with this frustration of his season and of him going to social media. Now, let me explain something, and this is about agents and players and why they do what they do with social media, and they can manipulate social media and the media and all these kind of things. So this really isn't about Deebo Samuel being pissed necessarily that he's not getting the football, and so he's trying to, because on the surface, everybody would think, well, Deebo's mad, he's going public, and therefore it's going to force the 49ers somehow to get him the ball. If that was Deebo Samuel's main concern, he would, as Kyle Shanahan just said there, walk into Kyle Shanahan's office. They have that kind of relationship, I know for a fact. And he would just walk into the office and say, hey, Kyle, I really think we need to get me the ball. Look at this, look at that. We're not getting it to this and that. Because it's not a democracy. It's not like everyone agrees with Deebo and everybody votes and all of a sudden Kyle says, well, it was a vote, it was a majority, and you know what? We got to get Deebo the ball. It doesn't work like that. Kyle is a czar. And so it's like, look, I'm either going to get you the ball or not. Brock Purdy's going to throw you the ball if you're open. There's all these different factors. But the reason why Deebo Samuel does that in public is because Deebo Samuel knows he's going to be gone next year. Let's think about this. Brandon Ayuk is going to be back. Ricky Pearsall's a first-round pick. He's going to be in the slot. He needs to be a lot better, but he's going to be in the slot. And then Jauan Jennings looks like a number one receiver. So those are your three receivers. George Kittle's coming back. You're going to have three good running backs in Christian McCaffrey, Jordan Mason, and hopefully Isaac Guerendo, and hopefully he plays in this game because, as I said, the Rams' run defense is absolutely atrocious. But Deebo Samuel is talking to teams that he may sign with next year. Hey, man, you still got to pay me because it's not my fault. I'm just not getting the ball. Now, we know as fans, media, and so forth, Deebo slowed down. He's at that age. He's kind of more like a running back than a receiver. He's got beaten up. He's not breaking the tackles. He doesn't have the burst. Maybe there's an injury we don't know about. I don't know. But the fact is that Deebo Samuel, especially at his current salary, 24, I think it's $23.8 million this year, he's not going to be here next year. So he's not doing it necessarily to even get the ball now. He could do that. If he wanted to do that, he'd just go straight to Kyle Shanahan or straight to Brock Purdy or straight to somebody in the building. But by making it public, what he's saying is, hey, anybody who may sign me, I'm still Deebo Samuel. It's their fault. I'm just not getting the ball. So that's kind of what Deebo Samuel is doing in that whole thing. Now, let's get to the game itself. All right, let's get to the game and number 3 on the list, which is Jauan and Deebo. But really, it's Jauan, Deebo, Cooper Kupp, and Puka Nacua. But let's just look at how neat I am, by the way. You're watching on the YouTube channel. Look at that. Look at those graphics. So Deebo Samuel, 47 catches, 639 yards, 7 touchdowns in 9 games in his career. But it's more than that. See what I've circled ever so neatly there? The last 5 games for Deebo Samuel against the Rams, except for the one earlier this year in which he wasn't very good. In those 5 games, 5 of the last 6, 32 catches, 503 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And at the bottom of the graphic there, I've written oh so neatly, plus 3 rush TDs. That middle word is rush. Plus 3 rush touchdowns. So Deebo Samuel in 5 games against the Rams, other than the one earlier this year, because, again, I'm trying to make this graphic be in the positive for Deebo Samuel. 32 catches, 503 yards, and 5 total touchdowns if you count the rushing touchdowns. He's played very well against the Rams in his career. As you can see, there's an 11 for 133 in there. There's a 5 for 97 and a touchdown, a 6 for 95. There's a 7 and 115 and a touchdown from last year. So maybe the great elixir that Deebo Samuel needs is to see the colors of the Rams, because generally speaking in his career, he's been absolutely great against the Rams. All right, there's the side of Deebo. Now here's Jauan Jennings, and you remember this earlier this year, and I'm going to talk about the receivers who missed the game, because Jauan Jennings was a one-man wrecking crew. George Kittle didn't play in the first game between these two teams. It was Jauan Jennings' day, as you see right there. 12 targets, 11 catches, 175 yards, and 3, count them, 3. And remember that one catch, he just stole the ball away? So 11, 175, and 3 touchdowns against the Rams earlier this year. That's what Jauan did. He's also had some playoff games. I was at SoFi when he helped them get into the playoffs, played really well in the playoff game that they lost, but he also has a 7 for 94, 2-touchdown game. That was back in January of 2022. So just like Deebo Samuel, Jauan Jennings has had great success against the Rams in his career. 22 catches, 345, and 5 touchdowns, including 3 earlier this year in those games against the Rams in his career. So 2 of the receivers for the 49ers, in Jauan Jennings and in Deebo Samuel, have had great games against the Rams, and that is number 3 on the list. But let me just add this for context and for reality. This is earlier this year, the 27-24 loss. The Rams come back. They had troubles on the offensive line. They had troubles at receiver, all these injuries. But if you look at it right there, you see no Puka Nacua under Los Angeles receiving. And again, I've given you this nice yellow highlighter so that you can see what I'm talking about here. Tutu Atwell, remember he had that deep touchdown against Mooney Man Ward. Never should have happened. Special teams sucked in this game, if you remember. So Jauan Jennings with those 11 for 175 and 3 touchdowns. Brandon Ayuk is not going to be playing in this game, clearly. He's on injured reserve with a bad knee. He had 5 for 48 in that one. Saubert was there instead of Kittle. So a lot of guys missing in that game. And obviously Ayuk's not going to be there. Deebo's going to be there. Jauan Jennings. But for the Rams, it's not going to be Tutu Atwell and Demarcus Robinson. It's going to be Kupp and Nacua. And obviously they've been great when they're healthy. So that's what that is going on as far as that goes. So number 3 on the list, watch those receivers. But Jauan Jennings, and I will predict this now and then you can laugh at me later on Friday morning show, possibly Deebo breakout game. You heard it first. Just think about it. There's been all this, I'm not going to even call it controversy because it's not controversy, but Kyle would like it to stay in-house. Deebo saying how he's not getting the ball. Maybe that influences Brock Purdy, but Brock Purdy's just looking for the guys who are open. I just have a feeling, and plus Deebo has played well against the Rams in his career. So let's call it a Deebo breakout game, and that's number 3 on the list. All right, let me play a couple of pieces of audio for you because although I've talked to a lot of old school guys, and obviously there was no Thursday night football years and years and years and years ago, but there's so much excuse making. These teams who have had buys before the Niners and this and that, and you got to travel across the country. And you talk to old school guys like Ronnie Lott, or I did the pre and post game show for years with Dennis Brown, a former 49er who won a Super Bowl, and the old 49ers didn't talk like that. They didn't care if they went across country. They didn't care if they played in an early game. They didn't care if there was injuries. And you just didn't hear the excuses. Oh, they have more rest than us. It just didn't happen. But it does happen now. So let's hear both from Kyle Shanahan, and number 2 on the list. You see the TNF on the chalkboard there. The TNF is obviously Thursday Night Football. The Rams don't have to travel far. The Niners get a little bit extra because they don't have to travel at all, but these teams know each other well. It's not like somebody's going to be fooled. Oh, I didn't see Kyle run that ever before. Oh, what's Sean McVay doing? I've never seen that. They've played each other. They know each other. They were on the same coaching staffs. So that's kind of the advantage here. You'd like to have a little bit more time to prepare, but then as both of these coaches you'll hear say, they like it afterwards. But to just kind of give you let me play these first because I promised you. I'll go all ADD on you, but let me hit these up first, and then I'll kind of explain how a week goes in Thursday Night Football. But this is number 2 on the list, Thursday Night Football. You're first going to hear from Kyle Shanahan, and then you're going to hear from Sean McVay. Here's Kyle on Thursday Night Football.
I think there's good things and negative things to it. I think that's why the players all kind of like it. It's also when you're hurting from the Sunday game. Sometimes it's why guys can't go on the Thursday game where they could go on Sunday. It just kind of depends on how the day went before and how they're going. But I think when you are feeling good and you're able to pull it off, I do think the guys really appreciate the 3-day bye week. You don't get many breaks in this league. With all you only getting one bye week, and one bye week in 17 weeks isn't enough. So I think sometimes it's crucial to have these Thursday night games because it is great for the mental and for the health physically for guys to get away for these 3 days. But it is always such a huge challenge when guys are banged up that they're just not ready to go on 4 days rest where they could be on 7. So it's got its pluses and minuses.
So there you go. Kind of interesting to me because normally Kyle is not a huge fan of Thursday Night Football. He's got a routine that he sticks to. But there you're like, hey, afterwards it's good. We know each other. And I think both guys, and you'll hear this from Sean McVay in a second, I think that both guys are kind of relaxed about this because if you're the Rams, it's a short trip. If you're the Rams or the 49ers, you know each other so well. You know that what each team is going to do. And really it just comes down to execution. You play some of these other teams, or if you have to travel much further or whatever, and they don't see them often, you're going to have to cheat the week before and scout these guys. But they see each other all the time. They know each other's offenses, which are very, very similar. They know the personnel on each team. They play each other all the time. So neither guy seems as stressed as he normally would be. Here's Sean McVay, head coach of the Rams, playing on Thursday Night Football.
Know so well with kind of the short turnaround?
I think, there's a familiarity, if that makes any sense. But I mean, it's a great challenge. They know us, we know them. There's some different things, we'll really dive into the prep pretty deeply after we finish up. And, some of the coaches have done a good job of getting ahead on some things. It's a little bit more challenging, just in terms of my rhythm and routine. But, I'll tell you what, you like the Thursday games after you get through it. It's a good grind all the way up to it. And, on a positive, guys establish some good momentum, some things that we can certainly learn from. And it's, these are the opportunities that you love in the NFL. And, I don't know if it makes it easier or worse, but there is a familiarity, and this is what's the next game on our schedule. So here we go.
See, he's talking about the familiarity, and that's what I'm talking about between these two teams. Neither guy seems as stressed or as upset that they're playing on Thursday Night Football because they know each other so well, so the prep isn't as much. But this is how an NFL week goes. So you play on Sunday. You come in for treatment on Monday because you just got into about 50 car crashes on a Sunday. Tuesday is players' day off. Wednesday, you start putting in the game plan for the game on Sunday. Thursday, you start going through everything. Friday is another practice. Saturday's a walkthrough, and then you have Sunday. So think about how condensed everything is if you're going to be playing on a Thursday. There is no players' day off on Tuesday. You're still getting treatment on Monday, but you're combining that with essentially starting to look at the tape and have a bunch of meetings and talk about things. Then on Tuesday, you're putting in the game plan. Wednesday, you're doing kind of a quick walkthrough / practice, depending on who's the home or the road team. Then the Rams will come in, just because it's such a short flight, the Rams will fly on Thursday morning, and they'll go out right after the game. So it condenses it and just makes it so quick. And normally, if you talk to Kyle Shanahan, not that he's not stressed this week, but he just didn't seem as stressed as he normally is. Sean McVay is kind of normally like that as well, but they know each other. They kind of cheated probably from the previous week, although didn't help the Rams that they played Buffalo and had to go and play as crazy as game, and that was. The 49ers got lucky because they got an easier game against the Bears, and they get to stay home, which, again, in this case, doesn't save you a ton of time. But, again, you got to prep for the airport, do all these different kind of things, 4 or 5 hours, a couple hours up to the Bay, get into do all that kind of stuff, buses. So it is a pain in the ass for the road team, and it should give the 49ers a little bit of an advantage, but not a huge advantage. And you know the scores. Regular season, the 49ers have dominated the Rams. The Rams won earlier this year. Weird, even though they had a bunch of injuries, 10-point lead. They blew it. NFC Championship game that I was at the SoFi Stadium. 49ers, of course, up in that. Jaworski drops the pass, and drops the interception, and the rest is history. But there you go. And both teams playing for their playoff lives. There's no doubt. The Rams are at 7-6, have an easier schedule than the 49ers at 6-7. Earlier this week, you can go back a couple of days. I predicted the 49ers will go 8-9 to finish the season, as they're 6-7 now. This game on Thursday, I do think they're going to win. Then they've got a little bit extra time to go to Miami, which I think is absolutely huge. Because, again, I just talked about excuses. They got to go all the way across the country. It just is what it is, but a lot of guys will complain about it. Then you got Detroit, who I think is going to have vengeance against the 49ers. Vengeance! They're going to be pissed from, of course, blowing the NFC Championship game, and they're just playing such great football. I don't know that the 49ers, with their injuries, can win that game. And then, of course, the end of the season, they've got Arizona, and I'm not afraid of that. I think the 2 wins are Arizona And this game against the Rams, I think playing the Lions and going all the way across the country, especially with Tua being healthy, is going to be tough. But let's stay focused on this game. And finally, number one is big play Dre, as in Dre Greenlaw. The linebackers have been a major problem outside of Fred Warner, but even Fred Warner, because he's had the foot/ankle problem this year, and he just hasn't been himself. Early in the season, there was talk of Defensive Player of the Year for Fred Warner, but then the injury happened, and he just hasn't been the same. Devondre Campbell's been a major problem. D. Winters is just too young, immature, overruns a ton of plays. He's getting better. Jalen Graham, they've had just a lot of problems without Dre Greenlaw, who ripped that Achilles in Vegas, which we'll get into in a second. But here is Fred Warner. He is absolutely giddy to play with Dre Greenlaw, who is questionable to play on Thursday night, but questionable most times means he's going to play. So let's assume that. Ask you me. Let's assume that for a minute. And here is Fred talking about his linebacker mate returning potentially on Thursday.
But I have to say this, and I'm so sorry to say this.
That's Huff. Huff lost a bet. I'm going to play that before we get out of here. Huff lost a bet as a USC safety and had to go in Notre Dame gear. Here is Fred Warner on Dre Greenlaw coming back Thursday.
It was great to see the defense fight like that in this game. How does it feel for you personally to know that Thursday night when you take the field that you may have Dre back?
Oh, yeah, it means everything. You know, I've been waiting for that moment for the entire season, right? And so to potentially have him out there again with me, it means everything.
All right, so first of all, I'm confident in saying that if Dre Greenlaw stays healthy, amongst all the other things that went wrong in Las Vegas, that the 49ers win the Super Bowl if Dre Greenlaw doesn't tear his Achilles in a really strange way running onto that spongy field in Las Vegas. And I can remember from the box, I was in the radio booth when in the Super Bowl, and I can just remember him falling down and then him staying down. And Tim Ryan had the binoculars out, and he's like, "What in the hell?" And it just changed the whole vibe. And Fred Warner's crying on the bench, and Dre Greenlaw was, you watched the game, and he's just flying around to start the game, and he was all over Patrick Mahomes, and they had a good plan against Mahomes, and he was going to mirror Mahomes some of the game, and we saw what Mahomes did later. So I really believe of all the weird things that happened during the Super Bowl, if Dre Greenlaw doesn't rip his Achilles the way he was playing early in that game, I think the 49ers win. He was locking up Travis Kelce, then he left, and Kelce had a field day. I think he had 9 catches after Dre Greenlaw left. He just had a field day against Oren Burks and Flanagan Fowles, and nothing against those guys. They're special teams guys, and they just tore him up. So you go back to that. That's a major part of it. But also, you remember the game, the interception against Green Bay in the divisional playoff game at Levi's Stadium. He just brings, Dre Greenlaw, he just brings an energy to the team. Fred Warner is the guy who talks and all these things, but Dre Greenlaw is an energy guy in that defense, and they have greatly missed him. Hufanga is an energy guy in that defense, and they have greatly missed him. So if they get Greenlaw back on Thursday night, and maybe by the time you're watching this, we will know that because inactives come out about an hour before the game. So if you're watching this right before the game, then we'll know. But if you're bringing back Greenlaw, Hufanga's got a thing has a cast on his arm, but he's back. That's an energy guy. Bosa's questionable, so I'm thinking that Bosa may play in this game as well. Now you might start seeing the 49ers defense that we thought we were going to get this year. Now, again, coming off an Achilles injury, and Achilles injury right now is the worst injury that you can be coming off in sports. Some guys can jump right back in there. A lot of guys take a year or so. So I don't expect Dre Greenlaw to be Dre Greenlaw physically for a while. I don't think 57 is going to be flying around like a madman like he normally is. But to have him out there, and you just heard that from Fred Warner, it's just one of those guys that is an intangible type of thing on the football field that they just love to have that energy from him. So if Bosa's back, Greenlaw's there. Warner is getting better with the ankle and the foot, but he just hasn't been the same. But he's had to play because at, sometimes 75% just because the rest of the linebacker core has been that bad. Now, Devondre Campbell, to his credit, has been a little bit better over the last few weeks, but still he's getting taken advantage in the pass game a lot, and that's where, again, Dre Greenlaw was very, very good. So Dre Greenlaw, I put it number 1 on the list, and not so much because I think he's going to go out there and make 10 or 12 tackles, but more so because I think Dre Greenlaw is going to bring an energy to the defense against the Rams. So there you go. Those are the 5 things to be watching for. The Rams run defense, which I told you is over 6 yards a carry in the last 3. Number 9 versus the 49ers. That, of course, is Matthew Stafford. 2-8 career against the 49ers, 1-5 as a member of the Rams, and that was the weird game earlier this year, or he wouldn't have a win against the 49ers, at least in the regular season. Jauan and Deebo. Jauan Jennings had those 11 catches for 175 and 3 touchdowns earlier this year, and Deebo has absolutely owned the Rams. So I'm going to say Deebo breakout game, but watch those receivers for the Rams. As I told you, that's part of number 3. 2 is Thursday Night Football. The Rams don't have to travel too far, but it does screw up your week. Who handles it better? That's a big deal. And Big Play Dre, that is number 1 on the list. So those are your 5. One quick thing, I did promise you, I did hit the wrong button, and so I showed you this. But this week was pretty funny in the locker room. Here is Talanoa Hufanga, Aaron Banks, left guard, who will not play in this game for the 49ers from Notre Dame. Hufanga, of course, from USC. Notre Dame beat USC. So finally paying the bet is Talanoa Hufanga wearing number 69, everybody, in the locker room this week, wearing his Notre Dame gear, and even had to do a bit of a speech.
But I have to say this, and I'm so sorry to say this. My kids will be attending Notre Dame at some point in their lifetime. Hopefully it's just for a class and then they're done. It is the best university in, the nation. It hurts me to say this. I can't stand this. This is like terrible color. I can't believe they wear this like helmet. But I think that's enough on today. I think I'll see.
There you go. There is Hufanga, which kind of shows that they still have a little bit of spirit in that locker room, even though they're 6-7, and they certainly didn't think that they were going to be there at this point of the season. So a little bonus, Talanoa Hufanga, as a member of the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. There you go. Lambs at the 49ers Levi's Stadium. That is coming up on Thursday night. That is your game preview. And the 5 things you need to watch: Rams run D9 versus the 49ers, Jauan and Deebo. Thursday Night Football, who prepares better? And Big Play Dre. Are we going to see him and some other members of the injured defense? And this is it. Like, I think they're out of it, but if they are definitely out of it if they fall to 6-8. That is your game preview. Rams and 49ers. John Lund Unleashed. Remember, 8 a.m. weekdays. When news breaks, 3 minutes on, game previews. Make sure that you check in everything else. The best way to do it, subscribe to John Lund Unleashed. Put those alerts on. Hit the like. Tell all your friends. And there you go. Thursday Night Football. We'll talk to you soon. Niners, Rams. Unleashed.